In last week's video, I looked at what boundaries are and its types. This week, I'm going to build on the conversation by looking at how you can set healthy boundaries in your relationships. Now, for a moment, imagine that you have absolutely no control over what goes on in your life as far as relationships are concerned, that you have no control over how people treat you, and that anyone you meet walks all over you and how you react is non-consequential. How would you feel? How do you think your life would look like? In real life, however, we have control over where, when, how, and with whom to set our boundaries with. The truth is, this is not something everyone has mastered. And in this video, I will be taking you through ways to set healthy boundaries. First, set your limits. You need to first identify and understand what makes you uncomfortable and stressed out in relationships. Then clearly state it to the person concerned. You can't state something you haven't identified. Don't assume that the other person should automatically know your boundaries and treat you the way you would like to be treated. You need to communicate this. Second, say no, simply but firmly. Ever felt guilty for saying no to someone even when you were clearly not in position to do what they request of you? We have been taught that we need to put other people's needs first at the expense of ours. It's good to explain to the other person when you can't do something. They can react in a way you did not expect, but remember that it is your responsibility to enforce your boundaries. Don't try to over-explain to make up for it. Just don't be pressured into doing something you don't want to do, or try to fix how your friend reacts to you enforcing your boundary. Say no, simply but firmly, and stand by your decision. Third, be direct and assertive about your boundaries. It is important to note that setting boundaries does not equate to being bossy or rude. Be direct about what you can or cannot take in a confident and respectful manner. Don't beat around the bush. Be clear in your communication. Say what you mean and mean what you say. Speak up directly and assertively when you feel your personal space is being flouted or your values are not being respected. Communicate effectively for your boundaries to be clear. For instance, instead of saying you have a problem, I'm not taking it anymore, you could tell the other person to cease shouting and allow you to speak. You could further state that if they continued, you will not be communicating with them. If you notice, the first statement is plain and bland, and the second one carries more weight. Being real and direct about your boundaries will make others see that you honor and respect your own boundaries, and they will honor and respect them in return. No matter how healthy your boundaries are, if you don't communicate them effectively, they could bring about confusion and result to unhealthy relationships. Fourth, don't just use words, back them up with actions. In setting boundaries, your words and actions have to match. You can't say one thing and act in a contrary way. If other people see that you don't mean what you say, they'll definitely flout your boundaries over and over and lose respect for you. Some walk over you, either intentionally or unintentionally, and the reason is because you let them. As a result, they keep at it. Whenever your boundaries are flouted, don't let things slide, even one time, because there sure will be a next time. To a point you are no longer in control of the other person flouting your boundary. Sometimes, when you state your boundary, some people might want to test and push you to see how far you can go. If they push the limits, it's up to you to enforce your boundaries. In some cases, if people keep pushing your boundaries, you don't have to talk about the same. Act in a manner that suggests you do not appreciate them flouting your boundaries. They will eventually learn to respect them. Fifth, set your own boundaries by yourself. Be the one to set your own boundaries, and you don't need permission from anyone else or guidance from anyone. Listen to your gut. Deep down, only you know what works for you. Letting other people tell you what to do out of fear, obligation, or guilt will block you from properly setting your boundaries. Don't let anyone guilt trip you into doing what you are not comfortable doing. The society has normalized being taken advantage of or being disrespected, and most of us might fall into a trap of condoning disrespect just to be termed as good people, even when it's not serving us. Quit seeking external validation at the expense of your boundaries. Boundaries are more than limits that shouldn't be crossed, as they symbolize our self-respect. You only need permission from yourself to set, build, and protect your boundaries, not from anyone else. Next, focus on yourself. In order to take care of others, it is paramount that you take care of yourself first. Setting boundaries is a form of self-care and helps decrease burnout that could be as a result of wanting to please everyone. Respectfully and politely communicate your needs and how they can be met. Finally, realize that you are not responsible for other people's emotions and reactions. Your boundaries can be flouted anytime, anywhere and by anyone. So when you're setting your boundaries, it is important that in the back of your mind you have it, that they can always be violated. There are people, if you start setting boundaries for yourself, they get angry, and this could tempt you to flout your own boundaries to please them. But understand that you need to protect yourself for your emotional and mental well-being. And as much as someone might want to guilt trip you or be angry when you set your boundaries, if you don't bend them, with time, they will realize that there is nothing they can do to flout your boundaries, and they will be forced to respect them. You are responsible for communicating your healthy boundaries in a respectful manner. You are not responsible for how other people choose to react or feel. It may be hard for you, and you may feel responsible for how others react to your boundaries, but remember that you owe this to yourself. It is critical to understand that everyone is responsible for their own reactions and feelings, including yourself. A healthy boundary needs to exist, and you can clearly communicate it by saying, I have communicated my thoughts and feelings in a respectful manner, but this is your problem to deal with. I have confidence in you that you can handle it, and let it be. In setting boundaries, understand that no is a full sentence. Having healthy boundaries is not being selfish. Instead, it's being self-full. It's a basic part of self-care and valuing yourself. Boundaries are important as they free you from responsibility and guilt for other people's feelings. They help us be more fulfilled and decrease burnout. You may find it difficult to set personal boundaries, but it is a skill you learn and gets easier with practice. And you can do it.